Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about changes that Code Vein need as soon as possible. For the most part, these changes are based off my opinion. It's not really a list of issues that the game has. It's more like things that I think or that I feel like were not implemented so correctly in the game and that could be better. I do have some solutions for them, so that is why I'm going to talk about these issues. Before I start, I need to say that in this video, there is no particular order for the things that I'm going to talk about. So let's talk about one thing that I think was really important for this game, which is the staggering animations for the enemies. Now, it is probably too late for this because it is the type of thing that takes a lot of time because they have to change the animations for every single enemy in the game and probably depending on the weapons as well. So I just think we need some better visual cues for such thing, at least when we know that the enemies are actually resisting the stagger. For example, you know how our character, when we parry an attack, we have this very quick and almost, well, it is quite noticeable, but it is a very quick glowing effect on our character whenever we parry an attack. That effect reminds me of something that we see a lot in fighting games, for example in Soul Calibur when you land a perfect guard, or whenever you land also a perfect guard in something like BlazBlue. And even in Tekken there's something quite similar when you use an attack that can resist other attacks, like you can resist stagger. So I think that type of animation, that type of a glowing effect on a character is very important when they are resisting a stagger, which can be applied in Code Vein as well for the enemy. The idea is that whenever you hit an enemy, they would glow white very quickly, very subtly. It is also a good thing because it will allow us to count the amount of hit it takes for an enemy to get staggered. It won't quite fix the issue, but at least it would be a better visual cue than having nothing that indicates us that the enemy is resisting our attacks. Now, it could be a problem because maybe it will affect the FPS, maybe it would be too much data, I don't know, but I don't think so, it shouldn't be. And I think it's quite simple to do so I think it's quite simple to add, to implement for every enemy in the game, because it's just a simple glowing effect whenever you hit them and they do not get staggered. It's more like a natural state, like if they are in a natural state, but who knows, whatever. I think it is just going to be a much better visual cue than having nothing. Now, we also have something like the death animations for the enemies. Whenever they go down, it's really a problem in this game because whenever you kill an enemy, they stand up and then they fall slowly and turn into sparks, which is very odd in my opinion. It's very weird, and I know in fact that a lot of people complained about this because it's a little bit of it's kind of confusing that you see an enemy stand back up when they are actually dead. So what would be better in my opinion is that they need something like in God Eater 3, where whenever you kill an origami, well, that one in that case it takes a little bit of time, but when an origami is dead and you're just standing there looking at the carcass of the origami, they start turning very slowly dark, like the whole mesh, the whole body start turning a little bit dark, and until the point where they fade away. I think that animation, that effect on the body of the enemy would be required in Code Vein. If they cannot fix the dying animation in this game, like where maybe you kill an enemy and they just fall, they just die immediately. If they cannot do that, I think at least having them turn dark immediately would be way better. Like in general, it would be just way better and would be a much better visual cue again when we kill an enemy, and we won't get confused. At least like there's a higher chance that players won't get confused whenever they kill an enemy. Alright, the next thing is the unrewarding parries in the game, mainly against bosses. So in this game there is a huge problem because whenever you parry a boss, what will happen is that they will just get staggered for a very tiny short amount of time, well, what happens is that it just deflects their attack and then they get back up, like they get back to fighting again. One moment when I was playing the game that I really enjoyed is when I managed to parry the blade bearer and she immediately got knocked down. If that type of stuff could happen more often, in fact, whenever we parry a boss, it would be really nice to have them go down immediately, because not only they have unblockable moves, they also have moves that cannot be parried at all, which is a problem. They also use a shit ton of projectiles, which you cannot parry. You cannot parry projectiles in this game. So please allow us to put an enemy down as soon as we parry them. That would be absolutely fantastic. Also, I think maybe it would be nice if we could immediately gain focus whenever we parry an enemy, because it is a very difficult move to pull out, and for some reason I feel like getting focused whenever you parry an enemy would be great, because when you play with heavy weapons, for example, it is very difficult to dodge some moves, and whenever you have a bunch of enemies against you, you definitely won't be able to dodge all of these attacks. So you need to be able to parry and get something in return more than just killing an enemy. Like, I think getting focused after a parry would be great in my opinion. So the next thing is about some sound effects. So sound effects in this game are not the greatest already, but I think they do the work well enough in my opinion. It's just that there are some moments when the sound effects in this game are very, let's say, underwhelming. They are pretty disappointing, I would say. For example, your rifle, your bayonet, whenever you shoot with the bayonet, the sound effect of the shot is very weak, which makes it, I don't know, a bit boring to use, makes it not so badass, It could be better in my opinion. Like, it's the same actually in God Eater. Shooting in those games it's very lame, I would say. I think the detonation of the shots should be a little bit louder than that. I think not actually a little bit, it should be much louder than that. And there's that, but there's also some other moments when the sound feels very weak. For example, when you fight the two Agent Wolf soldiers, whenever they swing their big, gigantic weapons, it's very strange because you do not hear the swinging sound effect very well. It's very faint, very low. I think it should be a bit louder than that, almost something like the Queen's Knight whenever he swings his sword. Like, you very clearly hear the swings, which is good. In my opinion, it's just a good thing in general to hear those swings, which is also the same for big, I don't know how to call them, like the Stone Crusher, for example, which has a gigantic sword. Sometimes he slams it on the ground and you don't hear anything. Pretty weird. Anyways, moving on to one problem that I had, which is the slow healing animations. I understand, once again, like I said in my overview, that healing, you need to find an opening, you need to find the correct time to heal, but sometimes in this game, whenever you find that moment, you still don't have enough time to recover from the animation, and what will happen is that the enemies will just hit you for the same amount that you've been healing for, which is very disappointing. I do not like that at all. I think whenever we heal, as soon as the heal is done, we should be able to move. But in this game, whenever after healing, what happens is that your character still has their hand on their chest for a short amount of time, but it's still there, and that little tiny moment really ruins everything in my opinion. Like, healing is it's very difficult in this game. And once again, the game is supposed to be played with partners, so they are supposed to draw the aggro and help you healing in that time, but it just doesn't feel right. When you play heavy weapons, once again, it's very difficult to get away from enemies and heal yourself. It takes a lot of time, it's very difficult, and they should change that as soon as possible. Another good change would be the camera control while we are backstabbing an enemy. Now, there's not much for me to say here, except that it would be really nice to still have control of our camera when we are backstabbing an enemy, because we want to know what's going on around us. I've noticed that the camera is still focused on the enemy that we are targeting during the backstabs, especially when you do not have the the cinematic effect on, and which, by the way, should be now in the camera settings, in my opinion, instead of the game settings. And yeah, all I have to say is that it would be great to still have control of a camera when we are backstabbing. Maybe unlock the target system, or remove the target during backstab would be nice, or maybe allow us to remove the target during backstab would be also great. So finally, the last thing that I want to talk about is the drain attacks and the recovery frames. Now, this is not really too big of an issue, but at the same time, it has the long recovery frames for the drain attacks have some implications. For example, whenever you use a drain attack and you hit an enemy, it is not a guaranteed knockdown, which can be a problem, because when you do not knock down, for example, with the let's say the auger type, which makes you go towards an enemy, it's a huge problem, because you have to go through this recovery animation, which is kind of long, and the enemy is already attacking you. So yeah, it's not a knockdown, and the recovery frame is too long. Same thing for the combo drain, actually, which is a problem as well, because combo drain uses a shit ton of stamina. So either they need to make sure that the enemies get knocked down, or they need to shorten the recovery frame of the drain attacks. Either if they miss or if they go in, I think it should be a little bit shorter than that, or at least the enemy should be knocked down every time you land a drain attack. So yeah, that is all for this video. I just wanted to talk about issues that I had in my personal experience, and that I think can be changed very fast. I think those changes are not like drastic, they're not really huge. It's just really minor, tiny tweaks that they can do, and I think they should be able to do them very easily. It's definitely shouldn't be like too much. And also the glowing effect that I've talked about when it comes to staggering, it doesn't have to be applied to bosses, because we know that boss enemies generally don't feel staggered very much. So yeah, anyways, thank you all so much for watching. For the moment, I'm just going to be reading stuff on Reddit. I've been recommended to go read stuff on Reddit by someone in my comment section, so I will do so. I've already went through some stuff. I'm definitely going to read more, because it seems like there are some really gigantic issues with this game, and there's a lot of them. So I'll read all of that, and for the issues video, I will make a list. It will be more in the form of a list, and I'll probably not be able to give any solutions to that. So yeah, anyways, thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video.